welcome back to the Style and Beauty Doctor here on YouTube. And in today's video, we are doing part 3 of the Korean mineral sunscreen trial. I'm gonna show you the good, the bad, and the mostly ugly about these sunscreens that I've recently tried, so keep watching. Now let me pull out my trusty dusty notes app to pull up my notes on these sunscreens. I tried them over a period of time in different situations, put my notes in, and then I was like, you know what, when I'm ready to film, then I'll just refer back to my notes. First up, the Make Prem UV Defense Me Blue Ray Sun Fluid. First thing I noted, it doesn't have like any overpowering scent to it. There is fragrance in it, but it doesn't like overpower my nose. Me, myself personally, I don't tend to get irritation from a fragrance in skincare, but my nose just doesn't like certain things. And you know, fragrance is something that's very subjective. Whether you're allergic to it, you tend to get irritated by some fragrances, or if you're like me and sometimes it's just like, my nose can't take it, you know, that's all subjective from person to person. But I did like that there wasn't like an overpowering scent to this. This blends in nicely. It dries matte, and after a while it feels a bit drying, but it is wintertime here in New York City, so that can, you know, factor into that. This might be more of a summer sunscreen for me. I have oily skin, but I live in a city that has, well, typically has 4 distinct seasons. You know, in time to time, I may need to switch up the products in my routine to compensate for whatever the temperature and the weather and all that other good stuff that's going on outside. This would probably be a better summer sunscreen for me. But that's not to say that if you have drier skin, you can't use it, because if you want to wear a moisturizer underneath, just make sure your moisturizer is on point. If you also need to make sure that you have a really great hydrating serum underneath, you know, just make sure all of that is on point if you're like, dang, I really want to try this sunscreen. Now, here's the thing, I said it blends in nicely, which it does, but I did notice that after a few minutes, when it dried down, I noticed a little bit of a cast. Now, after I put makeup on, it was fine. I wouldn't go taking flash photos with this sunscreen on underneath with makeup, because, you know, that's just, whew, it's gonna like exaggerate the cast. But I wouldn't want to wear this on its own. Now, just to summarize this sunscreen, I would say that it's probably better suited for oilier skin types. Now, bear in mind, if you're someplace that, you know, you have colder months where it gets kind of cold and dry, that it can feel a little bit drying, so you may want to, you know, wear a moisturizer on underneath. This might be better suited as a summer mineral sunscreen, but keep in mind that as it dries down, there is a slight tint, like you can see the cast slightly. It's not as jarring as some mineral sunscreens I've tried, but you're still seeing a little bit of a cast. Now, that's going to be something that you can easily cover up with some makeup, some foundation. And if you're someone who you watched my video on the iron oxides and hyperpigmentation, invisible light, and all that stuff, and if you haven't watched it, you know, check it out, I'll link it below. Foundations tend to contain iron oxides, which is a great thing to have for extra protection, particularly if you are someone dealing with hyperpigmentation. So make sure you check out that video for more information. But you know, this may work for some, and it may not work for others. But that's just how it is with skincare sometimes. So next up, the ROM and ND Daily Sun Filter Tone Up Pick. Again, pricing and sizing and all that other stuff will be on the screen, so make sure you check it out, and then link below if you want to get more information. Going through my notes, the first thing I wrote down about this sunscreen was hated it. This, oh my god. This has such a very pasty texture. It took a lot of extra manipulation that I do not want to be dealing with when applying anything to my face, because like I mentioned before, my face doesn't like a lot of friction and rubbing it and manipulation. Like, you do too much and my skin is just like, nah, yo, we ain't with it. Now, you might be like, well, what does tone up mean? Tone up is a term that's often used in Asian skincare to mean brightening your skin. But when you have a skin tone such as mine that probably more than likely, probably like higher than 90%, wasn't thought of in mind when they were creating these products. That tone up can be, whew. Have you ever seen Dead Presidents? Like, yikes. Now, because the formula is so thick, you might experience, now depending on what the base is in the other products in your skincare routine, typically you're gonna experience like pilling or, you know, products not really working well together if they're different bases. Like say for instance, something's oil-based and then something's water-based, or if something has silicones in it, it may not, you know, sometimes it just doesn't mesh well with other products in your skincare routine. I just feel like you're probably gonna have some issues with this depending on what's in your skincare routine, because the formula is so thick that you may have like some of that pilling. Now here's the thing, the cast on this is severe, yet still not as bad as some of the other mineral sunscreens I've tried. I'm trying to think of one of the earlier ones I've tried. It might have been one of the Supergoop mineral sunscreens that I tried, and that mess was like putting like this on my face like this. But you have to be careful when you blend it in, and again, because it's so, the formula is so thick, it's kind of hard to blend in, because even if you're like, you know what, I'll take a chance, I like this for some reason, and you try to put it on, you have to be very careful about how you apply it, because if you don't do it evenly, you will probably see streaks, and then the streaks will be very noticeable. So, I mean, it sounds extra, but you know, sometimes people do things that are very extra that I don't understand, but it works for their life, and who am I to, you know, judge that? But, you know, maybe you might want to apply this with a makeup sponge, dampen the makeup sponge, you know, wring out the excess water, and then apply this. You'll get a better, even application. I don't know, I wouldn't be doing all of that for this. To me, it's not worth it. Now, despite the formula itself being very thick, it's wound up miraculously feeling very weightless. The finish is natural, it's not matte, but it's also not dewy. So it's like, you know, just like your natural, typical natural skin finish. The white cast got all up in my edges, in my sideburns. Now granted, my sideburns, I'm trying to figure out how, like, where they need to stop, but I still haven't figured it out yet. But this sunscreen was all in my baby hairs, my hairline, my sideburns. So if you're a male and you have facial hair, you know, a beard and mustache, like, this is probably definitely not going to cut it for you. I would also say this is probably not the best if you have dry skin. You would have to just like do the most to make sure that you're properly hydrated in every step of your skincare routine if you have dry skin. And then I'd still think that it's not worth it, because there's so many other options out there if you have dry skin. But you know what? Even though like it's kind of like, if you're really trying to like salvage this, it may not be as bad if you put your makeup on, you know, your foundation on over it. Just don't go taking any flash pictures. I don't even know if you should take any pictures at all when you wear the sunscreen if you're of a deeper complexion. But overall, I hated this, but that doesn't mean that you may not like it. So if some of the things that I said were negatives to me, but they sound like they'd be perfect for you, then give it a try. Like, you know, that's what skincare is about. So next up, the Axis Y Complete No Stress Physical Sunscreen. Again, make sure you check out the screen for pricing. And then, you know, of course, there'll be links below so you can get more information. Now, since this said no stress, I was looking forward to trying it, because that last one stressed me out. I was shampooing and doing the most to get that mineral sunscreen out of my baby hairs and my sideburns. So I was looking forward to something that was, you know, that said that it was no stress. It blends in nicely. I don't have to like fight with it to get it to apply to my skin. There's no tugging. Like, we can just glide it on, which I really love. It's gonna have a satin finish, so it's not going to be extremely dewy. So you can kind of get like that cross between dewy and matte. So it's not matte, but it's not dewy, but you get a little bit of a sheen to it. There is a very slight cast when you first apply it. Now the cast went away, but it was like I felt like I'm like I could still kind of see it like even hours later. So this might be something that, you know, if you're a makeup wearer, you know, you just slap your foundation on top and the white cast won't be as much of an issue. Just don't go taking flash photos because then that'll tell on you. I actually wound up really liking this. There is that slight cast that's still there. You can still see it's not bad, but you can still see it. Now, like I said before, some mineral sunscreens are better than others when it comes to deeper skin tone. I have yet to try a mineral sunscreen with zinc and either zinc and titanium dioxide as the filters they are just not going to work the same as chemical sunscreens. They're just not gonna, I have yet to come across it. You know, when I come across it, y'all be the first ones to know, but the nature of zinc, sometimes it's just like, you know, unless they micronize the particles or they put a bunch of oils in it, but not bad. I would say this is probably the better one out of, you know, what I've tried so far in this video. So next up, the Dear Klairs Midday Blue UV Shield Mild Sun Protector. Now I just wanted to make the distinction that it's the Klairs Soft Airy UV Essence that's currently in question. On whether or not the SPF that's listed on the label is the true SPF that the product is giving. If you want more information on that, I will link you to an article and some other videos that'll kind of help give you some more information on the controversy that's going on with Klairs as well as Purito. Now, this one has a soft, pleasant smell. Like, I love that it's not overbearing because, you know, some of these people feel like they just threw like a whole bottle of grandma's perfume in a formula and it's just like, ugh, my nose can't take it. But this one has a soft fragrance. It's not overbearing for me, but of course, you know, fragrance is subjective. So this blends in nicely as a nice creamy formula. So again, I can easily blend it and apply it on my skin. There's not a whole bunch of like extra manipulation that I need to do to get it on my face, which my skin loves because, as I mentioned before, my skin does not love friction. This feels very hydrating, so if you have oily skin, you can probably skip the moisturizer on underneath. Or it might be like, you know, if you have oily skin, this might be better for you during the colder months if it gets really like cold and dry where you live. Otherwise, I would say that this is probably formulated with drier skin types in mind. Now, the formula felt very lightweight in feel, but it's still very hydrating. So it's not like, it's lightweight, but it's not the most lightweight. Now I would say this has a satin finish, so it's like somewhere in between matte and dewy. So it's not, definitely not matte, but I wouldn't qualify this as dewy. So just like satin, like a nice slight sheen to the skin. Now the formula blends in really nicely in the skin. I didn't notice much of a cast, but there's like just like if you put makeup on over this, you'll be fine. But what I will say that, you know, this is a sunscreen that you definitely want to make sure that it is for your skin type. It's the right season. The weather's is cooperating for this type of sunscreen, because I do feel that, like for instance, in New York, it's winter right now, but some days it can be, you know, very cold, below 32 degrees Fahrenheit. But then some days, for me, when it gets to like 40, 45 degrees, to me that's a little milder, especially, you know, depending on what products I'm putting on my skin. I wouldn't be able to wear something like this, and then if I put makeup on top of it, it's going to interfere with how my makeup performs. So you definitely want to make sure that like everything is on point when you use a sunscreen like this. Next up, the Yuja Niacin Mineral 100 Brightening Sun Cream. This has, the texture on this is just like, it's so creamy, it's very rich. So much so that I felt like I didn't need to put a moisturizer on underneath. Again, I have oily skin, it's currently winter time here in New York. And the texture blends in really nicely into the skin. It doesn't feel very pasty and hard to like get on my skin. There is a scent. It smells very like spa-like. It doesn't bother me, but like I keep saying, fragrance is subjective. Finish, you're gonna get a natural matte finish. It's not gonna be like mattifying. Like if you have oily skin, this is definitely not mattifying, but it's going to just be, you know, dry down to a natural matte finish. So not dewy, not matte, but just like, you know, natural matte. I definitely wouldn't use this in warmer weather, like, not with my oily skin and not with how humid it gets here when it gets warmer out. And I probably wouldn't even want to wear this in the spring because the spring obviously is not as hot as the summer, but with my oily skin and the way that this felt on my skin, probably not great for me in the springtime either. Now it does take, when you apply it, there is some cast, and it does take a couple of minutes for the cast to go away. For it to seemingly go away, I should say, because this was quite sneaky. So here I am thinking a couple minutes later, like, wow, this is great. You know, it's better than some of these other sunscreens that I've tried here. It's probably not the best for my skin type year round, but you know, definitely in the wintertime, this might be a good, you know, this might rock. Then half an hour later, I went to go look in the mirror. And this thing, I don't know what activated, but I was looking like this. So, yeah, it's quite sneaky. I would definitely wear makeup with this if you're going to wear something like this. And again, no flash photos, because that will tell on you. Next up, the Ryan UV Derma Mineral Sun Cream. This also, like the previous one, was very rich and creamy. I felt like I didn't need to wear a moisturizer on underneath, and you know, I have oily skin, it's winter here in New York City. It's very white and iridescent looking when you rub it in, so it's like, ooh, like what's happening here? But after a couple of minutes, it does calm down and the cast doesn't look as bad. However, this is also quite sneaky because after a few minutes, I'm like, oh, okay, it doesn't look so bad. And then 30 minutes later, boom. Now here's the thing, I've tried a lot of mineral sunscreens, a lot. Like you can see all the receipts of me trying all the mineral sunscreens. And with these two, this is like the first time I've had something. Now obviously when I'm trying mineral sunscreens, I leave them on for longer than 30 minutes. I'm wearing them for the entire day. But this is the first time where something seemingly was okay a few minutes after putting it on. And then like about half an hour or so later, it was just like, boom, like ghost face killer. So I'm like, I don't know, that it activated and just was like, boom, we gonna make you look like this. If you put makeup on over it, it won't be as bad, but like I keep saying, if you're going to, you know, take any photos, no flash. I wouldn't call this spa-like, and I can't put my finger on what it actually smells like, but it's a nice pleasant smell. It's not like flowery, or well, some people like flowers, I don't. Well, I like flowers, I just don't like that scent in like fragrance or skincare. You're gonna get a satin matte finish, so you know it's like not dewy, but you've got that like nice sheen to your skin that's a little matte and just like a little bit of a sheen, like just like right there in the middle. And I would say that this is probably better suited if you have drier skin, because I wouldn't want any parts of this in warmer weather, because even in cold New York City winter, it still felt like it might have been a little bit too heavy for me a little bit. So definitely something to look for if you have drier skin, and if all the other things don't, you know, affect you like that. How you gonna have a slow buildup with the cast? Like, now, a couple things to know about mineral sunscreens. Number one, you are probably definitely gonna have flashback if you take a photo and you have a mineral sunscreen on, even if you put makeup over it. So, you know, just be mindful of that. So that's the thing. Two, typically you want to apply your mineral sunscreens in thin layers until you have the adequate amount of protection. Now, the thing is, if you take a big glop of mineral sunscreen and try to apply that and blend it in, you are gonna be so mad because the cast is going to be sharp. Now, here's the thing with adequate protection. So there are guidelines such as a 1/4 teaspoon or a nickel-sized amount or 3 fingerfuls when it comes to, you know, being able to approximate how much sunscreen you need for your face. But the thing with that is we have different face sizes. So someone with a very small face is not going to require as much sunscreen as somebody with a big face. So I'm going to link below a video that Lab Muffin did because there is actually a like a thing that takes into account the size of your face. Now, is that something that the average consumer is going to remember every time they put on sunscreen? Probably not. But if you're someone that wanted to gain more insight from that, you know, make sure you check out her video. She also has a video that I found very, very informative on the different scenarios in your life and the different types of sunscreen that you would need for that. So for instance, if I'm sitting at home, working from home, maybe I get, you know, minimal UV exposure, but remember UV exposure is cumulative, so every little bit adds up. But I'm not outside, I'm not running around, I'm not really doing much. I'm probably not going to need to reapply my sunscreen. Plus, you know, we have a shorter period of time that we actually have sun in the winter time. So I'm gonna need sunscreen, but I may not need as much as if, you know, I was going out and being out at the beach for 6 hours in the summertime. So make sure you check out that video because it'll give you some insight, because like I always say, like, one sunscreen is probably not gonna cut it if you have, you know, different facets to your lifestyle. So for instance, the sunscreen that I wear when I'm wearing makeup is gonna be completely different from, well, in most cases, it's probably gonna be different from what I would wear to the gym. When I'm at the gym, I need something that's water resistant because I can't be having sunscreen, and I wear chemical sunscreen, so I can't be having sunscreens getting into my eyes and burning my eyes, impacting my vision while I'm lifting weights. That's just not a great combo. What is up, you guys? It's Editing Danielle / Danielle, who's filming the actual sunscreen demo portion of the video. And I was removing the sunscreen to go and put more sunscreen on and realized that maybe I didn't say that with 9 times out of 10, I feel like with mineral sunscreens, you're going to be a little bit resistant to come off with your regular cleanser. So you may want to consider doing a double cleanse. So essentially, cleansing oil, cleansing balm, massages it into your skin to remove the mineral sunscreen and kind of break it up, rinse that off, and then you follow up with your regular cleanser. And the sunscreen that I obviously would wear under makeup is definitely not going to be the same type of sunscreen that I would wear going to the beach, because going to the beach, I'm probably going to look for something SPF 50 plus. I'm going to be reapplying a lot. Like, there's just so many different facets when it to your lifestyle and the type of sunscreen that's going to go with it that maybe, you know, maybe you might want to wear the Access Y on days when you're going to be wearing makeup, and then you use something different on non-makeup days. So that's just the thing with sunscreen. Like, and that's a great thing about there being so many options, because then there are a lot of options for us to try. And I'm going to keep trying some more in 2021, so make sure you subscribe to this channel. I'm also going to be adding more chemical sunscreens. Chemical sunscreens were something that I've always tried, but just more on my blog than here on YouTube. So I'm going to put some more chemical sunscreen reviews here on YouTube. And I'm also going to be trying some sunscreens that are available outside of the US, you know, where I can get my hands on them, because I think those are kind of cool as well. Follow me on social, the links will be in the description box, and I will see you fine folks in my next video. Bye, guys.